Hey, what's up, guys? Charles Rosa. Just had an awesome conversation with Matt over on the podcast. Check it out. I'm on my journey through the UFC and what I got up and coming.
Welcome back to the show. This is going to be part 2. What I mean by that is Charles Rosa, who's been on the show once before, is by far the most popular guest that's ever been on the show, and there's a reason for that. So if you missed the first show, don't feel bad because this guy is going to drop gold. Everything he says is motivational, inspirational, and on today's show, we want to talk about the second part of his journey, which is where he's going from here. First show, how he got here. First show was growing up. First show was family life. It was all the things that molded him and that got him to where he was about a year ago. But now going forward, current projects, 10 years in the UFC. The guy is a champion, so welcome to the show.
Oh, man, happy to be back on him.
Show's over. That's it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's go.
Man, there's so much to talk about. First of all, you have a fight coming up on October 20th. Right now, we're middle of September 2023. So, I mean, you're ready to go at all times. I know that, right?
Yeah.
You're ready to win?
Man, I'm real happy. I get to return back home. I'm undefeated in Boston, the most winningest fighter all time in the UFC in Boston. I have most all-time wins, and I get to return home to New England. And
it's a great feeling, right?
Main event, CES in Foxwoods, Connecticut, the casino. So I'm really excited. It's always been a dream of mine since I was a little kid. My uncle Tom the Bomb Rosa was a boxer. And when I was about 20 years ago, when I was a kid, I got to go watch him fight and headline Foxwoods, and now I get to return and do it 20 years later. So kind of like a dream come true.
That's pretty cool.
Something when I was a kid, I always wanted to do.
Your last fight was like a year ago?
Yeah,
a while ago, right?
Yeah, it was the O2 Arena in London.
Oh man, that's wild.
Yeah,
that's a crazy venue, right?
Well,
just even be there.
It was insane. The British fans are notorious,
right?
You know, they drink their beer, they get loud, and they're crazy. But it was sold out arena, pretty crazy, and it was a great fight, fight of the night type fight, and
it was, man.
Happy to be part of it.
It was. Regardless of the outcome of that fight, it took you months to recover. Like you really, you I watched it, man, and you like give your heart when you're fighting. Like it's obviously physical skill, but man, like you do not give up. You don't give up. And I know that you've been working with and you've been mentoring some other people. Have you been able to pass that, like, I don't know, can you teach somebody that? Or is it that you got to just have that?
That's the one thing they say in coaching is, they say that, heart is something that can't be taught. And it is something that can be trained, I feel like. I feel like you're born with heart, you know what I'm saying? That's something that's instilled with you as a child and you're growing up. I mean, the way I grew up, my dad, the most important thing he always told me was to never give up and try hard. He never cared if I scored the most goals in a hockey game or if I, got straight A's, but that I gave all my effort. So that was always the most important thing. So I feel like those are values that are instilled with you that can create hard, but that's a tough thing to teach is hard. But like I said, it can be trained. So that's one thing that, you try to do is you try to make the guys work hard. You try to get in the gym. You try to push yourself to the maximum ability, and then, it comes out in the fight. But out of all the things in a fighter, heart's the toughest one to teach.
I watched like a 60-second short of Mike Tyson like a week ago. And it's funny because he said the same thing. Somebody was talking to him when they were hitting the bag. You saw this? They were hitting the bag.
It's interesting. And
the guy said something to him that made Tyson in response say, I didn't have any skills. He's like, I didn't know how to fight. And something to the effect of, but I had a heart. And I knew what I was capable of. He goes, everything was taught to me.
Yep.
But he goes, nobody taught me that. Almost the same thing you just said.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it must be right then.
Right?
You get the legend saying it, and, I've been in the sport for a long time. I've been, trained at some of the top gyms in the world, been around the best fighters in the world. I've trained with the best fighters. I've put in rounds from the best boxers in the world, the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world, the best MMA fighters in the world, the George Masvidals, the Dustin Poiriers, the Mike Browns, all the best.
Take me through that a little bit, right? So you 10 years in the UFC, 15 years overall fighting. Give me a high level, like that journey. First of all, I mean, you didn't start out in the UFC. Like you earned your way in. Yep. Can you give me like a high level, just for somebody watching who might be dreaming about it, who might want to be that, look at you as a role model?
Yes.
How do they do it?
So that's a really good question, and I do have an answer because I have people reach out to me sometime on Instagram and, hey, how do I do this, and things like that. And the truth is, and I truly believe this, is I feel like if you put if you you really, first of all, the number one thing is you have to love it. There's no worse sport in the world you could do than to have to fight and not want to do and not love it. Like if you told someone, oh, you have to get up and you have to train, wake up every morning and run, you have to eat healthy and you have to go fight and then you have to go get punched in the face, a couple times a year, more than that maybe, and every day, every weekend, every sparring session, and you don't love it, then I don't think anybody in the world could do that job. I think every fighter that you ever meet loves the sport and they love what they do. So passion, I think, is the number one thing. You have to, really be, all in on it. You have to love it. So, that's something I told one of my training partners, one of the guys I mentor, Dustin Lampro, Scrappy, I think he was on the show earlier, is he, that's something I told him when he was about 19, 20 years old when I first met him. And I remember he said, I want to be a UFC fighter. I want to do this. And I remember stopping and being like, hey man, Scrappy, listen up. Like, if you don't love this, then please, I'm not saying you can't do it as a hobby and do it for fun and take some amateur fights and, maybe even take some pro fights. But if you want to be in the UFC, if you want to get to the highest level, you really have to love this. I'm like, do you love it? And he's like, yes. And it's pretty cool just to see last week him go 9-0 and
won the belt again.
He's one fight away, knocking on the UFC door. But, back to your question, it's just basically what was the question? How do I get exactly?
Somebody's got that, right? They've got the passion.
Yep,
they want to do it. How did you get there? It was the consistency, the persistence.
That's it. And that's what it is. So the first thing is the passion. That's number one. The next thing is the discipline, being able to, focus on the diet, focus on the training, getting up, working through injuries. There's days that I'd wake up and I'm like, man, my knee's messed up. Do I go train? The answer is yes. If you're asking yourself the question when you wake up in the morning, can I go train? If that question comes in your head, the answer is yes. You can always train. But when you wake up, if you can't train, if you can't walk, you can't, you're so sick that you can't get out of bed. It's simple. So that it's a long journey. You know what I'm saying? It's
the training,
years
persistence
of the story of a fighter falling down and getting back up, falling down and getting back up, and even losing fights and getting back up. You only really lose, I feel as a fighter, is if you fall down and don't get up, as if you quit. You never lose as a fighter if you never quit.
We just talked with Dustin actually earlier, and that came up, and my comment was, as long as you fall forward, you can fall, but you can't fall backward. You got to be learning, you got to be progressing. There's got to be something that comes out of the fall or the failure. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like you said, I've been 15 years a pro and I've had so many ups and downs, surgeries. Yeah. I had, neck fusion surgery, shoulder surgery. I've been around the entire planet training martial arts. I've been, I've done everything you can do, I feel in the sport, and I've been all over the place, but it's really because I love it. So I think the answer to the question is for love and for passion in the sport. You have to love it, and then you have to, have the discipline and the hard work, and you have to be surrounded by the right people.
Wow. That last part is killer. Being surrounded. So that's important too, because you and I were talking before we flipped the cameras on about making sure you're mentioning 3 other people that you're mentoring, and they're fortunate enough to have you around them. And I suppose that you've also put them around other good people just as part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
Because you know who those people are. And you had that. You told me a story a while ago about the first person that gave you the opportunity or saw something in you. Do you remember that?
Yeah. My coach.
At that initial gym.
Yep.
Right? So people need that. It's some people might say it's luck or it's a break, but
yes,
it's not, because you'll tell the story in a sec, but that gentleman gave you an opportunity and you had a passion. So you actually continue to create more opportunities by pursuing it and by being present.
Yes.
There's nothing lucky about what's happened to you.
Yeah.
Because you've reached the highest levels in the UFC. There's nothing lucky about it.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of hard work. There's a saying, I think it was Wayne Gretzky, but it's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You have to put yourself in a position. You have to be around people, and you have to. The thing is that opportunities are going to come. If you put yourself in the right place. But you have to take advantage of them. I mean, my first UFC fight ever, I got a call on 5 days' notice to fight the number 8 guy in the world, Dennis Siever, in Stockholm, Sweden. He was a European champion at the time. I was 9-0 as a professional fighter. I was on top of the world. And I got a call to fight one of the top guys, a guy that I looked up to since I was a little kid, watching him fight. He was a machine. This guy was, he's an absolute monster. If you look at him, the history of the sport, he's one of, the toughest guys. He's like the Terminator, and
Right.
I got the call to fight him, and I could have, not taken that opportunity, but, I answered the call and I took the fight. I was 33 pounds overweight, but I went into that fight and I flew to Stockholm, Sweden. I got fight of the night. It was actually fight of the year contender for the UFC, and I got a $50,000 bonus, and that's what changed my life. Like, financially, I was able to pursue my, finally,
it changed everything.
Financially, a little
bit. It changed everything.
My decision to be a fighter, because it took many years to get to that point.
And people looked at you differently in that world. Like, it must have changed everything.
Yeah, it was great. It was special. But
so we all get older, right? So it can't go on forever, because at some point your body's going to start saying, hey, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
So there's other projects that you work on. Like, I know that you're part, in a way, like an ambassador for the UFC. I know you do a lot of speaking. You work with the military. Like, you're not just like, hey, I'm a UFC fighter. Like, you have depth to you. There's other things you do.
Yeah.
What are those things?
So there's a lot of things I like to do, and I try not to put, there's a saying, I was always told as a kid, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And it's kind of contradicting of what I do, because being a UFC fighter and getting to that level, I had to put all my eggs in one basket. I had to be all in. And, I got to the point. So one of the other things I do is I was a chef, graduated from culinary school. So I have a huge passion for food and culinary arts.
And I'm good at it too.
Yeah, I do. I worked at a restaurant called 432 on Atlantic Avenue, Delray Beach. Is a 5-star, steakhouse, beautiful spot. So one of my passions is food, cooking. I like to teach other fighters how to cook. I've cooked for Rory McDonald, BJ Penn. I've traveled, with the UFC, even cooking for fighters and helping them with their diets. So, that's one thing I've had to, I've been able to do. Like, it's
pretty cool.
It's been really special. Yeah. I never was in the military myself, but I almost joined the military when I was in college. But I guess luckily, because I feel like I'm happy the way my life has turned out to this.
You would have been a good soldier.
Yeah, that's what they say. So, I do.
You got a haircut.
That's what I'm saying. So there's a guy, Lex McBad. He used to manage me. He's a former Marine. He owns Titan FC, so he's a fighter. He's a fighter himself. He actually took his first pro fight at like 50-something years old, and just to show the fighters in his promotion that he wasn't just asking them to fight, but he did it himself. But he has an organization called A Hero, which I guess it's based on, like, thousands of soldiers take their lives every year from depression and, PTSD and stuff like that. And he started this foundation, A Hero, and it's kind of to educate, soldiers and kind of give them like an extra meaning for life. Because after they go to war and stuff like that,
like, what's your purpose?
Exactly. They have a hard time. They struggle mentally, physically with their body and stuff and everything. So he has this foundation, A Hero, which he's raised, hundreds of thousands of dollars for. And we've been able to join the military and armed forces entertainment. So we get to go around to different military bases all across the world, not just the country. Like, we go, I was just in Honduras. We're just in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba.
Wow.
Yeah, we got to go to Cuba or Guantanamo Bay, which is really special. This next week, we're going to Romania, Germany, Spain. We're going to travel to all these military bases to teach jiu-jitsu and hand-on-hand combat to the soldiers. So, I think...
so you do that with him? That's a program
it's separate.
Sponsors and...
He sets it up, and, he's tight and close with the UFC, and he works with them. So they get... I'm not sure exactly where they get all their funding from, but, it's all for a good cause. And, we're all fighters. So whether it's the UFC, whether it's, just... any Bellator, whether it's PFL, fighting is one, you know what I'm saying, and there's mutual respect between all fighters.
So you go out there and you're with military, and did you tell me like a few weeks ago you were with the SEALs?
Yeah, I was training with every Marines.
It's all in the same program. It's all with the same guy.
Yeah, there's all.
So what do? You go out there and meet with the Navy SEALs. Like, what are you showing them?
Jiu-jitsu, I teach
for real. Like, they don't, and these guys don't know that.
No, they know that it's funny because, like, I'm teaching them. And I have this one Marine, and he was the most Marine type of dude you'll ever see in your life, dude. He had the Marine haircut. He had the perfect salute down. And I was like,
you got the hat.
If you ever seen a Marine, this dude is a Marine. Like, he just looks like a savage killer, dude. Like,
you took him right down.
Yeah, no, but he did. He was like, I want to train with jiu-jitsu with you. So, it was cool to train with him. But he said to me, I was like, yeah, so if you ever, he's like, basically, if you get into a hand-to-hand combat situation in war, like, you're pretty much screwed, you know what I'm saying? You're in a bad situation.
Yeah.
So you need to do whatever you can do to get it. Like, you need to grab a rock, you need to grab something. But I was like, if you ever get behind someone, you can choke them out. And he's like, well, we were taught to grab our helmet and to bash their head and repetitively with it. I was like, well, can't argue that, man. Like, I'm just going to teach you jiu-jitsu. But maybe if you're in a different situation, but like, I mean, I just feel like sometimes you can bring some extra light to their day when we go to these military bases and they see like it's a breath of fresh air for them. So whatever we can do to go there and help them and train them, and to even just talk to them, like, I give them like little posters, sign a card, take a picture, stuff like that. It's just it changes.
And they love me.
And it might give them an extra boost when you don't know what type of day someone's having. So sure, be going through a tough day. You don't know if they're on the edge of break-in. You don't know if something happened in their family. But if you can be an extra breath of fresh air for somebody, to give them some extra inspiration or hope, maybe it could save the extreme cases, it could save someone's life,
Do you see that, I know that you have years ahead of you, but what do you see, like, as things start to change and you evolve and you do need to switch away from actually going and fighting? Like, is this the kind of thing you're going to continue doing? You're going to stay with the UFC?
Yeah, I would love to continue doing this, and that's kind of why I'm going on this trip. Still is like, what I love to do is I love to travel, I love to cook, I love to eat, and I love to fight. So if you can somehow incorporate those three things with me, then I'm in. So these trips, I get to travel to all these different countries. We get to go to eat different cuisines. I get to go, meet military and train people. And also I love my country. So I love the United States. You know what I'm saying? I love representing my country. I represent them. I always walk out with the American flag when I fight. So those are the four things that I love, you know what I'm saying? And that if I can do all those things, anything that involves those things, that's what I want to do. And yeah, I'm in a transitional phase, I feel like, in my life. I think, they say, some people are like, oh, well, the best years of your fighting are behind you. I truly don't feel that way. One of the people and legends I look up to most is Mickey Ward, and Mickey Ward versus Toro Gotti. Mickey Ward is one of my boxing coaches from Boston, absolute legend of a man. For those that don't know who Mickey Ward is, he had the fight of the year 2 times, fight of the century against Toro Gotti, round 9. And his fight versus Toro Gotti was the greatest round in any combat sports in history. If you go ahead, you can watch it on YouTube or anything you want to see it on. And he told me that I talked to him about it, and he said, Charlie, he calls me Charlie, but he's like, the one. But he goes, Charlie, he goes, I was 37 years old. Everyone told me I was done when I fought a Toro Gotti, and that was the greatest 2 fights of my life was when I was 36 and the year after when I was 37 when I fought a Toro Gotti. So I think I still have my best fight ahead of me. And
Dude, you're in great shape. You're still
yeah, no, I feel good.
But it's as a human being, we're all getting older. It's like it begins to be like I spoke to Dustin this morning. He's 29. He's just at the beginning, so to speak, but then there's just everybody comes to that point. So it was something I was curious about because you've been so successful.
Yeah, so I'm definitely getting to that point, and that's something I think about. Like, I don't want to be like 42, 43 still fighting and against these 20-year-old guys and stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do. Is one of the big things I do is I train other fighters. We have a gym, American Combat Gym. My mentor Charles McCarthy owns it, and I'm training. The number 1 amateur in the country right now is my little brother Lucas. He just got the ranking this past weekend. Picked up a title in Alabama. He was number 1 in New England and Florida before that. So we travel around the country fighting the nation's best amateurs, and we're gonna turn them loose pro pretty soon. Maybe next fight we might get one more. But that's one of the things I love too, is training fighters. So it's something I keep in my back pocket. And then the cooking, of course. And then like these military trips, and I like training people. And sometimes fighters, sometimes it's just regular people.
Like, I see everything that you post, and I saw that post from last weekend when your brother won.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's funny is I saw you on the video. I think you were walking in at the end of the fight. I think you were walking up to him, and I immediately thought, like, wow, you get to do it all over again if you want to.
Yeah.
And I was kind of leading up to that too. Like, there's a whole other, like, for your brother to have the mentor that he's got. Yeah. It almost gives you like, hey, I've done my thing. I'm still doing it, but now I get to do it all over again.
Yep.
And you could have another 10-year run.
Yeah, that's
as part of his team.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
No, that's what I love. The way I look at it, it's like the blueprint. My coach, Charles McCarthy, gave me his blueprint. He fought a few UFC fights. He actually retired when he fought Michael Bisping because he thought Michael Bisping sucked. And if he couldn't beat Michael Bisping, he can never become UFC champion. He retired after that fight. Michael Bisping became UFC champion 5 years later.
Yeah.
But he passed the blueprint on to me, and
right.
I've had a 10-year UFC career, 15 fights in the UFC, and, I haven't won the championship yet, but hey, there's a couple things that maybe I didn't do right, and that's I'm pretty close to perfecting the formula, I feel like. I got 3 fighters that I train, the 3 main fighters I train. I have, starting off with the first one, Lucas Rosa, my little brother, #1 amateur in the country. Dustin Scrappy Lampros, who was just on the show earlier, he's 9-0.
Yeah.
Well, when I met Dustin, he was 2-5 as an amateur fighter.
Yeah.
He was about 18, 19 years old, and he was basically living out of his car. I let him stay at my house, and I took him on a couple trips to Holland to train some Dutch kickboxing with me. I just kind of took him under my wing, man. He's really flown, and he's shining right now.
You're right there, man.
He's knocked right the UFC door. And then the last one, Daniel Sankora Marcos, he trains over here at IHP, and I'm the one who brought him over here, and he came from Peru. He wasn't in the UFC yet. He was an undefeated fighter, so he had a good pro record, so I kind of got him. He was already there, but he wasn't UFC level yet, and they brought him to me, and man, he's been shining ever since. He's 15-0, undefeated in the UFC, one of the top prospects in the bantamweight division, and I think he can be UFC champion. So I feel like I have
you got three, man.
I got my three main guys, man. They're all crushing it.
You're like the secret weapon in it.
And I just feel, I just feel like I give them the tools. I mean, they do the work. I'm not, I put in a lot of the work with them. I try to, but they, if they, I truly feel like if they listen to me and they do what they say, which they all feel like they do, or at least to the most part, then they have success. And I just love what I see. And, I've sent them all over here. We're sitting here at IHP with, JC Santana's gym, and I've sent them all here, and I've trained here myself. And I think this is one of the top training facilities in the nation. And I think JC Santana is the best strength and conditioning coach I've ever met. I've had the opportunity to go to all different countries, train with the Olympic training facilities, the UFC Performance Institute, all these places. And then JC is I think overall is the best strength and conditioning coach I've found. So
I'm glad you brought it up, because my next question was elite training facilities. Right?
Yeah.
We're in one.
Yeah.
There's a few others that you go to, but how important is it, like, to somebody out there who's got this dream, or maybe this isn't even their dream. Their dream is just to be in the best shape of their life. Like, does it matter that you go to a facility that really is like elite? That you're surrounded by these people with the mindset. Like, does it make a difference?
Yes, the answer is yes. It 100% matters. The people you surround yourself with, you'd be surprised. And that's one of the things I've actually started to learn from going on these military trips with the Army and the Marines and the Navy SEALs and all these guys, is that they surround themselves with such a strong force around them, and their morale and the people around them is just it's insane, and that builds character. It builds mindset. It builds all those things that sometimes you can't find them on your own. And if you don't have them, then you can pick them up from somebody else, so you can give them off. And people's energy and their vibes, it's unbelievable. And I truly feel like the people you surround yourself with, if you see it, it feels so much more obtainable. Like, if you were to tell me the first day you met me, like when I first walked into that gym, the American top team in Boca Raton with Charles McCarthy was coaching, he was like, "Oh, you could be a UFC fighter." I was like, "This guy's crazy."
You told me this story.
He just talking nonsense. He's trying to get me to sign the membership.
Yeah.
He's like, "I see something special in you." But then once I go there, and then they bring me over to the main gym, I was at a satellite American top team. They bring me over to the headquarters, ATT. Once I finally started winning some amateur fights, you just see the people, and then you see there's champions in the room, and then all of a sudden I do a round, and I spar with UFC champion, the first UFC fighter, high level UFC fighter at American top team, the headquarters. I sparred with was Thiago Alves, and he was training to fight against George St. Pierre, and it just that moment for me was because I thought he was invincible. I thought he was a god. You know what I'm saying? So when they put me in there, I was like, oh my God, someone threw headgear over, and I cornered him, put that on. I'm like, okay.
Oh shit.
And I just go in there and I put my rounds in, and of course he's amazing. You know what I'm saying? He's one of the greatest Muay Thai fighters to ever fight in the UFC, stand-up guy I still look up to. He's amazing. But you realize that you're not that far off from these guys. And then when you see it and you're around these people and you start seeing the goals obtainable, if this guy can do it, this guy can do it, then you feel like you're a part of that. I'm like, well, if he did it, why can't I do it? I'm right in between.
So it becomes about belief.
Yeah, you believe
it. It becomes about belief.
And also it makes it easier to believe. Not that I like making it. I mean, that's not true. I do like making things easier, but it's easier when you're surrounded by people that are doing it. It's easy to obtain. Like I said, just if you see them all around you doing it, it's easier to do.
Because it's they're people.
Yeah,
they're training. They're being persistent. They're doing. Well, I could do that. So you have to have some physical. You have talent. Yeah. You have ability.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do it, but you had the basic tools.
Yeah.
So and they saw that. That gentleman saw that. He's like, you could do this.
Yeah.
How has how has this all impacted your personal life? Like, how old are you now? I forget.
37.
You're 37, right?
37. Couple 2 weeks ago.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
You got to go out for steaks again, man.
Yeah,
It's been a year. It's been a year.
Let's go.
Has this had an impact on your personal life as you've gotten older? And
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's man.
it could be good or bad.
Being a fighter, no, it's both. I mean, being a fighter is the toughest thing you can do mentally, because you go from being this like superstar, then the fight's off and you get injured or you hurt your shoulder, then all of a sudden you're kind of just like, you're used to waking up every single day and getting this amazing high of going in the gym. You freaking feel great. You get out, and you're on top of the world. To kind of like be kind of sitting there, and when you're fighting, or I'm fighting the UFC, I don't have like another job, and of course there's hobbies and there's things you got to do, but the rush of fighting is the equivalent of like a drug. It really is. Like the training every single day, it just puts you in a different place mentally. So it's really difficult when you lose that. It almost feels like you're like going through withdrawal.
It's like your identity.
Yeah,
it's like who am I?
Yeah.
What does it feel like? Wait, I got it. Just I'm thinking as you're talking. When you like walk into like a huge arena,
Yep.
and they're playing your music and like you're coming out.
Yep.
Like what does that feel like?
Oh, there's no better feeling in the world. It's honestly, they say it's indescribable. It really is, because it's like the energy of like, hearing 25,000 people chanting your name. Like when I was in Boston, when I fought, like I said, I got most all-time wins in Boston. I'm 3-0 in the Boston Garden. Like every time walking out to those fights, like hearing my song come out and hearing, like looking up at the crowd, it's like, and it's all for you, like in other team sports, it's definitely special, what I'm saying? But like when you go in the field, it's
all for you. Can you feel it as you're explaining it right now?
It's like you almost feel it. That's what I'm saying about when you walk out and you look up like in the screen and you look at yourself and you see yourself on the jumbotron for the first time, you're like, what the? That's you was trying to look at yourself like, oh, and it's
you don't ever get used
special, but it's always exciting. I feel like if you ever lose that rush, then that's when you got to stop because something's missing. Like
that's like the final rush. Like you walk into the ring with that, or not the ring, but you walk into the cage with that.
That's what you do it all for. This is all the sacrifice that all the times that I fought for nothing, all the amateur fights I took for nothing, and all the times I didn't get credit when I fought in the gymnasium and there was nobody there to watch me out just by myself. No one even have a video of it because they weren't even filming it. You know what I'm saying? Like all those times that the things I didn't get the credit for it is, I finally get the chance to get some, get something out of it. And that's why the UFC has been special, because they give you that platform.
I was just curious about that feeling. It's like very few people ever will feel anything even close to that feeling. Yeah. And you're right. You put all that work in and you're climbing and climbing and climbing for years.
Yeah.
And then you have that first experience where you walk into a real, like major, like,
venue. It's out of control. It's really something special. And then also not to go back, but on what you said before is like the sacrifices that I've made, like as I'm getting older, is there's a lot of things I've had to sacrifice. I mean, relationships I've had, girlfriends and stuff that like I could have been married and had kids a few times. I feel like I've had some really nice, sweet girlfriends, great girls that I've lost because it's like sometimes I have to be so focused on this one thing that I kind of get away from that. Like I'm like, hey, it's I'm training camp, it's my fight's coming up, like I'm completely isolated and separating myself because you can't, and it's been difficult. It's difficult. There's a lot of sacrifice you have to make. So sometimes you wonder, is it worth making the sacrifice for this result? And it's hard to know which ones are worth. It's hard to advise and not. So that's the thing, is that like I try to. That's why I feel like it's important to have like good mentors and be surrounded by people. Going back on what we said when we started, is to go back a couple steps and stuff like that, is because like if you have the people and the right people around you, you feel like sometimes you need someone to talk to. You need like a mentor. You need maybe a therapist type person to talk to, because you're just making these decisions, and sometimes you're making them emotionally because you're making them because you're so focused on becoming the UFC champion that you're letting everything in your life sometimes get away, and that's difficult to balance. And I still, like I said, I have the blueprint for a lot of things and how to train a fighter, be a fighter, but I haven't figured that part out yet. I'm still working on it.
And half those people, it centers you. It's people that can relate to you, and it keeps you like in that mindset that you need to be in. So you've been in for 10 years. The UFC has evolved. When you first got in 10 years ago, it was a different organization. It's gotten way more popular.
It's insane how much. Like I used to tell people I was a UFC fighter, like, what do you do?
What is it?
Oh, boxing. Okay. like now it's like there's not one person that doesn't know what that is.
So when you first got your contract, you must have interacted with Dana White, right?
Oh, yeah,
so there's people out there that he has a reputation. It could be good, it could be bad. It's just like any business person.
Yep.
But you have a unique perspective,
Yep.
and I'm curious as just a person that's out there like anybody else is like, what is it like to work with him?
I've had many sit-down conversations with Dana. I've, been in all types of situations. I've got to sit down where he basically gave me $50,000 and was like, hey, congratulations, fight of the night. So it's hard to dislike somebody that does something like that for you. Someone hands you $50,000 and tells you that was one of the best fights they've ever seen and gives you the respect and, pat on the shoulder. It's hard to say anything bad about somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? But in the same breath, it's just the people. It's like any business. It's like politics. Like people are going to agree and disagree. And when you're making executive business decisions at the highest level like he is, it's you're going to get some rift and you're going to cause some problems and you're going to upset some people to run a successful business like he's done. So, he's from the same hometown as me. He's from Boston. So, we have the same, we understand each other. We get that respect. And, I'm very grateful for the platform he's given me as a fighter. I feel like I've, really been able to thrive. And, now I get to go home back again. And I have, thousands of fans in Boston that are coming to my fight. Everybody's excited. England, the whole side of New England is excited to have me return home and, fight back and main event up at Foxwoods, which is a legendary place too. So I'm just excited to get back in front of my fans, friends and family. And, I'm happy now that it's even bigger than it was. And then, like I said, I also have my little brother coming up. So
is
get the next generation coming. You get the next generation of fighters.
Coming up in the business.
Yeah, coming up. Yeah. So it's just, it's all good. But yeah, and like I said, it's nothing. I can't say too many bad things about him. I think it's just business. It's like politics. Yeah. Everyone's going to disagree with politics, and it gets difficult.
I think that's the point. My takeaway is that it is just business.
Yeah.
Nobody knows him unless you know him behind closed doors.
Yeah. So I know him behind closed doors.
But the general people, everybody likes to talk.
General sense, yeah.
And so maybe there's something on the news, there's something on social media, or there's some nonsense or whatever. Yeah. But the reality is that's actually kind of the point. Like, you have only good things to say because it is business, and you never really know what somebody's perspective is. But yours is real, and yours has been a good experience.
Yep.
It's been a successful relationship.
Yep.
And he supported you.
Yeah.
And that's really the bottom line, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, if he says he's going to do something, he's done it. I mean,
so he's loyal, trustworthy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a good message.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say if he's trustworthy, like as far
and
as,
you're really,
I'm saying in my relationship, everything he's told me he's going to do, he's done it. And everything he said he wasn't going to do, he didn't do. So like, it works both ways for sure. But like I said, he's, I also was in a situation where, I had a neck fusion. I needed neck surgery. And I don't believe that the UFC was obligated to pay for it. So I feel like, I was in this weird situation where like I have a $250,000 neck surgery that I need to have done, and I'm not sure I have any covered to pay for it. It's not covered. So, for me, luckily Dana, I got the call from Dana, and he said he's going to take care of it. So I don't know if it's he took care of it personally, if the insurance took care of it, the UFC I don't know.
Doesn't matter. They took care of it.
They took care of it, and I was able to, have another 8 UFC fights, and I've been fighting for 4 years since that surgery. So, I was really, I thanked him for it. I said, hey, thanks. He's like, oh, no problem. And he's like, is happy to. I don't really know the whole, like, the way it worked out. That's all I know is that he's done everything he said he's going to do for me. So I can't say anything bad. And, I've had an amazing.
We're not looking for bad.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Like, just it is what it is, yeah.
Well, many people know him. You know him.
Everybody always wants to hear something bad in this sense. But I mean, I just think that that's what it is as personally my relationship. Is there things that I think he could do better? I think he could take care of the fighters better. I think we should all be making more money. I think that it's tough to see that, when I started in the UFC, I got paid $10,000 and $10,000, and that fighters 10 years later, when the economies, everything's changed, are still getting the same rate. It's difficult to see, and I feel like, is there something he can do about it? I don't know. I feel like there is, but in a business sense, it's like, well, why would you want to pay people more money if you don't have to? So
that's a good point.
It's tough, but as a fighter, like I think I would hope and think that he wants what's best for the fighter. So that's yet to be seen, and we're gonna find out I feel like in the future what it is.
So you're fighting in about 3 or 4 weeks, and you have I'm sure many more fights and many more years ahead. We've been talking about things like kind of in a weird way, like your career is always not. But I have a question because
that's part of it. It's part I get to enjoy now. I feel like,
Right.
Yes.
And that's actually, so I'm curious, like,
I feel like,
I'm curious, like, how you, there's going to be a legacy that you've left, and you're still fighting, and you still have the opportunity to continue to create your own legacy.
Yes.
Do you ever think about that? Like, I mean, you're a well-known champion in this, right? So what are you leaving as your legacy when people look back 20 years from now, and UFC is still huge and still going on, but there was Charles Rosa.
Yeah. No, I think
Boston Strong.
I mean, I think when people hear my name, what I want them to hear is that, the guy with the biggest heart in the room and the biggest heart in the fight. Like, I've never been out of any fight I've ever fought. I have 3-time Fight of the Night winner in the UFC, Fight of the Year. I had back my UFC debut, and also a few other fights that should have been Fight of the Night, but because of, the way the politics, or it's a main event or something, like I've had some wars that I could have got Fight of the Night for also that I didn't. But every fight I've won or lost has been an absolute war, and it's a fight that, that when you see Charles Rosa fight, he's not going to quit, he's not going to give up, and he's going to fight his heart out.
Truth.
So it's something, and that's something that, that's the only thing I can control. You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to get the best skills. I've traveled the planet working on the best skills, training Muay Thai in Thailand, Dutch kickboxing, Brazil, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil, American top team, and, Sanford and Kill Clip, all the best alpha male, all the best gyms in the world, Uriah Faber, Mike Brown, training with the best coaches on the planet. But the one thing that you can control, the only thing you can control is that.
That's right.
Is
on our first show together, you talked a lot about your dad.
Yeah.
Actually, we had him come on the show, which you weren't expecting. Remember he dialed in?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He's and I just remember walking away from that conversation with you, like he was a big part of what you just said.
Yeah.
Like there's something just the way you grew up. And you grew up. I mean, you've always been fighting.
Yeah.
Like even as a kid, but the heart. Not everybody has that. You really do. That last fight you had, man. Like, I was watching and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But you just kept coming and kept, you just were not giving up. I mean, you were like,
I mean, that's the problem. Sometimes when I fight, I don't fight like, it's 15-minute fights, 3 5-minute rounds.
Yeah.
That's something that even JC, my strength conditioning coach, says to me. He goes, Charles, it's not a fight to the death. It's 3 5-minute rounds. Yeah. At the end of the fight, there's a winner.
That's it.
And you either get paid double your paycheck or you get half of it.
Right.
And all that bullshit, all that hard, all that. Yeah. He says Boston Strong. He goes, it doesn't matter. And I know what he's saying. He's saying all that.
I could hear him.
All that. Yeah. He goes, it's all that. Like, you have to, you got to sometimes you got to be the technician. You got to use your skills. That's hard for me to do. I haven't found a way to be able to harness my talent and put it in and be calm, like focused, composed, kill it yet. Some I'm still working on, but sometimes I get emotional when I fight, But the one thing, if every fight was to the death, I would have won every fight I've ever fought in my life.
I believe it.
I've never been submitted. I've never been finished. And at the end of every round of every fight, I've been standing up on my feet. So, like I said, I haven't won every fight on the judges' scorecards, but I feel like, I haven't really ever lost a fight either. I don't feel like I've ever been defeated. I feel like I've maybe lost in the judges' scorecards, but I don't feel like I've ever been defeated. That's why it's so easy to come back and still be standing for the next one.
You brought this card for me.
Yeah.
And it made me think of something, which is how many kids and how many fans are out there like that having this means a lot to them.
Yeah.
Just like when I was a kid, we had baseball. I'm much older than you. We had baseball cards and football players, but you see yourself on a card.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that you end up because you're social media, so there's a lot of social media for you. Yes. You're very active. Do you ever find that you're interacting with fans, like legit, like fans just want to?
Yeah.
They want to feel what it's like to talk to you, or like. Have you had any memorable like fan experiences that just are going to stick with you forever?
I had the best one of when I was a kid, and it changed. It doesn't change how I treat, but it's a big part of it. When I was a little kid, when I was 11 or 12 years old, I got to go to the Boston Bruins practice facility. It was in Wilmington, Massachusetts, I remember. And one of my friends' dads used to take us to go get autographs from the players. We wait outside by the cars, come out to sign the pucks and stuff. And I remember one day Ray Bork, he's one of the most legendary players, defenseman, greatest defenseman of all time, played for the Boston Bruins. Ray Bork came out, and I remember he took the time, he stopped, and he signed an autograph for me. And I just remember it literally being like the best moment in my life up into that moment. Like, oh my God, I met Ray Bork, like guy I watched on TV. And I remember how it changed my life and how like inspired I was from that moment of meeting him, and like how the time that he gave me the time of day and stopped to talk to me really changed. I think it changed my life. It really did. And it made me a bigger fan. It just made me more just happier overall as a human, as I feel like I try to pass that on. So anytime like I meet a kid or something, or I something, I try to give them like an autograph, a card, take a picture with them.
It's stuck with you.
You never know something like that could change people's lives. And I've had moments like that. People like, oh, after meeting you, I started going to the gym. I lost 30 pounds and I did this. And I'm like, damn, all I did is like take a picture with you and tell you to keep it red working hard.
To you, like who you are? Does it register with you, the influence you have over people?
No, it doesn't. I just want to help people. So if whether it's one person or a million people, I would hope it's a million people. The more people I can help, the better. So
I mean, a lot of people
yeah
are fans of yours.
Yeah. I love it. No.
You think about it, like you're aware of it, like
yeah, no, it's great. it's good. I love it. I feel like I got it the hardest way you can, just working hard and not giving up. There's many times in my career I could have quit, and that's one thing I hope my fans I try to instill is that, I went into the doctor's office, 4 years ago, and I sat with my parents. My mom was sitting there, dad was sitting there. The doctor, the big shot doctor, who's he sat down, and he said, real quiet. The room was quiet, and he said he looked at his piece of paper and he looked up and he goes, "It's improbable that you'll ever fight again."
Come on, when was that?
4 years ago, and he goes, "You have severely herniated discs, in your neck, and basically a broken neck, and you can't fight, and you could be paralyzed if you ever fight again, and yeah, it's improbable you ever fight again." So I looked at my mom, looked at my dad, and it was the only time in my entire life, besides when my brothers passed away, that they just had a blank look in their face. They didn't have an answer for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Usually your parents always have an answer for you. They have okay, they give you some advice, but that was the only time in my life one of the only times besides obviously my brothers is they were quiet. So my mind started racing. I'm like, man, what? I think it's something. And then I stopped and I looked at the doctor. I said, "Are you saying it's improbable or impossible?" And he said, "It's improbable, less than a 1% chance." I said, "Well, I'm a 1%.
I got the 1%.
I'm a 1%. I'm a 1%.
You did it.
And 1%, only 1% of fighters make it to the UFC. Only 1% of people have done what I've done, and I'm that 1%." And he goes, "Well, if you want to take that 1% chance, I'll gladly help you and do my best to help you, and we can go ahead with the surgery." And that's what I did. And I came back and won the biggest fight in my career. A year and a half later, I came back in the Boston Garden. I was like a 3-1 underdog against Manny Bermudez, and I went and submitted him in the first round and got submission in the night bonus in my hometown in Boston and secured the most all-time wins in Boston. And that was basically the best moment in my entire career. So
The 1%.
yeah, I did it.
Do you train differently now? Has your training evolved?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I mean, that's like a...
Well, it's funny because every day Daniel, the UFC fighter that lives in my house, he trains. "Hey, Charles, can we go come train with me? Spar. And I'm like, dude, I love it, man. But my number one priority, the one thing I've learned, and I actually did hear George St. Pierre say it towards the end of his career, my number one priority when it used to be going to the gym, be in the best shape, be in the best, my number one priority when I go to the gym is to stay healthy. Number one, most important thing. When you get hurt, you can't do anything. You're no good to yourself. You're no good mentally, physically. More actually mentally, honestly, than anything. If I get hurt, if I sprain my ankle and I can't train, I'm absolutely mental.
Right.
I don't know what to do. So, and then on top of it, you can't fight physically. So I think number one priority is that. So sometimes I've had to train my training methods instead. I try to pick my partners a little bit better, do a little bit less sessions, different sessions, and just switch it up a little bit. So that's what I've had to do.
Yeah, it's evolving. You're evolving the way you need to.
Yep.
Mental toughness.
Yeah.
I mean, everything you're saying. I mean, you're explaining.
Yeah.
Your view on mental toughness with everything you're saying. But how do you have the heart? You have what you're born with. What you carry from what you grew up with. Can somebody without that level of inherent mental toughness make it in the UFC? Is it even possible?
It's tough because, sometimes people say that I'm a believer that if you work hard at anything, I think you can do it. But there is a certain type of person that takes to be a fighter. So I'd be ignorant to be like, oh, no, anybody can be a fighter, because there's definitely some people that, you flick them and they flinch, and it's difficult, but a fighter is one of the rare things that you kind of have to be born. You have to be born a fighter. I feel like you have to be born a fighter from the second come out kicking and screaming. Like you
can't study mental toughness. Okay, now I'm tough.
Yeah, it's like some people have it, but I think it can be taught. It can be worked on, but it is one of those things that you're either a fighter or you're not, and you usually find out pretty quick.
It's interesting. Was talking to you today.
Yeah,
because you're very at peace and kind of chill. You got a big fight coming up.
Yep.
But you're just like there's like a quiet confidence. Like even just being around you, like you can feel like the confidence.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have to even say anything. It's like I just know that I'm sitting with a winner. Like you can feel it.
Thanks.
You always been like that. You always had that, right?
No, I don't know if I always had it. I'm very confident now. I finally feel like I'm happy with my career. I mean, a lot of the years fighting in the UFC, believe it or not, I wasn't really happy. I mean, I loved fighting in the UFC. I loved it, but like, some of the times training through injuries, the pressure of them calling you on 3 days notice. Like one of my fights, they called me on literally 3 days notice, and they're like, "We need 3 days. We need you to come to Las Vegas and fight." And I'm like, "Dude, why?" And they're like, "If you don't take this fight, then we're not gonna fight for a year." And I'm like, "What?" Like they just bully you.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy sitting on my couch having a nice afternoon after I trained all day, doing everything right, to get a call like that, to being the calmest like I am now, to being the most stressed out you could possibly be. Like, how am I going to get to Vegas? I have to be in Vegas at 6 a.m., get on a flight. It's 9 o'clock at night. I have to be on a flight at 6 a.m., pack all my stuff, go weigh in, cut weight, start drinking water, like, call my cornermen, just get everything together. So there's a lot of chaos that comes with it, and fighting in the UFC at that highest level, and it's very stressful, and sometimes it's like you don't enjoy it, you know what I'm saying? So I finally have at this point in my career where I'm starting to call the shots. I'm going to make sure I'm the A side every time, and the fights and stuff are going to be revolved around me. And I help the promoters help promote the fight. If the picture doesn't look right, I'm like, yo, change that picture. I realize that it's the little details of everything. And it's something I actually heard Dana White say when he first started the UFC, is all these little details, they make a big difference.
They matter.
The walkout music, the production, the way the angle of the camera is, stuff that I never noticed before in my own career, but I'm starting to notice now. And these are the cool things that I get to pass on to my little brother Lucas, Scrappy. I get to pass on to Daniel when he's in the UFC. I get those little extra moments and capture those extra moments and things that someone didn't get to do for me. Like when Daniel wins his fight, I tell the right interview. I see the Ariel Helwani over this. Ariel, hey, interview my guy real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, who is he? Daniel. Yeah. He just won his first fight. Okay, he runs over. Like none of the things like that, or like maybe I go find the UFC Espanol guy that runs the social media for the Latin America and fighters, and I get, hey, can you do a quick video of that? Oh yeah, no problem, Charles. So I have these extra connections that make it extra special for them.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. I also commentate. I'm a commentator for fighters, for fight events. So sometimes, like Joe Rogan does the commentary, and he goes in and he interviews fighters. I do that. Yeah, I just did a show last weekend, so I do that. Like 6 or 7 times a year. I do it on Fight Pass, so I work with the UFC.
That's one more thing you do.
Yeah, one more thing.
Yeah,
I do color commentating, and I do the post-fight interviews. But some guys are negative. Like sometimes I see Daniel Cormier, and he's like talking like, "Oh, that was a kind of a boring fight. You just laid." But I know it's special.
There's always naysayers,
guys. No, but it's a special moment for these guys. Like how hard they work. So I try to make the most positive, good experience for them as I can, and I ask them, the right questions, and I get everyone around them like, oh, the new champion of whatever, and how does it feel? And like, I like to make the moment special for people. So if I can find any way to do that, that's what I try to do.
Very cool. It's very aware. Like you're really in the moment.
That's really awesome. A lot. Like I've just been around it so much that I can find these little intricate details that make it special.
It's like you have wisdom now because you've been doing it for so long. It's like these little things that matter to you that you learn from other people that matter. It's like now you can't pass every bit of it along.
I try to do my best. Yeah.
Is there one final message or thought that you would share with somebody who's watching this? They're watching this because you have so many fans, and like I said at the very beginning, our last show was like the most widely watched show I have.
Yeah.
And that we've done together. And so this is going to be probably 10 times that.
Yeah.
We'll see. So what would be a message that you would share with somebody who's just a fan who maybe has a dream?
Yeah. Well, there's something that my grandfather, Dominic Rosa, he passed away at 98 years old about a year ago. He said something to me, and he said, you make your own luck. And to me, it's like there's a lot of good luck has to go into fighting. And there's times that you might sprain your ankle in the fight, or maybe you get a cut in your eye. There's so many things that can happen in your career. You could trip over a rope and tear your leg. Someone could hit you from behind in a car and then your neck. There's a million things that happen in life, but you create your own luck. If you put yourself in the position and you work hard enough and you put all these things, then you're gonna start realizing you're starting to get lucky all the time.
That's what luck is. It's not real.
It's not a luck.
You make
like if you get a call from the UFC, people, oh, Charles is lucky, he got just in the UFC now, but they didn't see the 30 other fights I fought before that and the hours.
That's right.
Hours in the gym, and it's gonna happen to Scrappy too. He's gonna get a call from the UFC, and I'm sure there's gonna, oh, Scrappy's lucky. He got it.
We just talked about that.
It's not luck, dude. He created that. He created his own luck.
And that guy sacrificed.
Yep, he sacrificed his whole life. He moved away from his family, everything he's had. And same with my roommate, Daniel Marcos. He moved away from Peru. He has 3 kids at home. He just had a newborn wife. I met his whole family. They love me. His kids are amazing. But they all live in Peru.
Uncle Charlie's
here with me. Yeah, it's unbelievable that, and he sends them money home. And then my little brother Lucas, he moved from Boston, and his girlfriend and my family and his school and his.
He's down here now?
Yeah, he lives here. And he's away from his graduated college. So instead of pursuing being a philosopher writer and going that route, which he'd probably be making good money at this point.
He can do that down the road. That's always
so but it's a sacrifice they make. Yeah. And he won the belt last weekend. Daniel's doing good. I'm doing good. Like Scrappy's doing good. But it's all lining up.
Lucky. It's all lining up.
It looks lucky.
It's hard work, perseverance, grit, determination, mindset. Everything that's all to me.
You had to ask. Like that's one thing. You create your own luck. I like that one. So
that's it. Listen, I'm gonna be up there on October 20th. I'm gonna come on. I'm gonna be ringside. I'm gonna be ringside.
Yeah, they said you were gonna get some tickets, so I'm excited.
I gotta call the guy on Monday. We forgot.
You gotta come in the cage after me. We'll take some pictures and
no punches though.
No, if you want.
No punches. No punches.
No, I'm gonna be all punched out.
I'm talking. No,
I'm gonna get my punches out of my opponent. We'll be good.
I want to thank you, man. I want to thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
And
thanks for having me on.
Good luck.
Awesome.
I don't think you need luck, so it's a bad word to use, but it's gonna be fun to watch you in a few weeks.
Yep. No, I can always use the luck too. When people say good luck, it's a good thing. I like it. I'll take it.
What's meant to be is going to be. You're going to do the very best you can.
That's it. That's what I say.
That's it. You do the best you can.
Find my heart out. That's all I got to do.
All right, man. Thanks again.
Thanks again. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.